In this scenario, it states that users complain that lately, when connecting to secured websites, they initially receive authentication and certificate errors. Okay, let's stop and break that down. A secured website presumably is one that they are connecting to with HTTPS. And then they are initially receiving authentication and certificate errors. So, okay, that's only initially. So what we can read from that, even though the question doesn't directly state it, is that afterwards, so maybe after the first initial error of trying to sign into a secured website, they try again, and then they get in successfully. Very suspicious. So continuing with the scenario, after investigating the issue, host logs show that some user devices are infected with malware that modifies entries in the DNS resolver cache. The DNS resolver cache is in memory on, in this case, user devices, and it gets checked first. For example, if I want to connect to www.totalsem.com, my local DNS resolver cache is checked first to see if that's happened already and if we have the IP address that we really want to connect to. However, if an attacker can control the IP address users are directed to when they try to connect to something by name, this is what can happen. So, the question is, which attack is most likely to have caused this type of behavior? The correct answer is DNS poisoning. That's what that's called. DNS poisoning means that the attacker has poisoned DNS results that, in this case, client devices are receiving. They're being redirected to a fraudulent site. Now, what's happening is that the fraudulent site looks like the real deal, except the certificate is incorrect, which is why users might get a certificate error. And of course, it's not the real site, so the users aren't able to authenticate successfully, but at that point, it's too late. The attackers already potentially could have harvested the user credentials. And then after that, the user could be redirected to the real site where they can sign in correctly. So it can be very difficult for a user to determine that something is really wrong. Maybe it's a glitch, maybe they think they entered in their password incorrectly, that type of thing. Now, URL hijacking usually happens server-side, for example, where maybe we've got a URL that is now under control, maybe even in the DNS server, it's under control of the attacker, and the attacker can control redirection in that particular case. That way, the DNS resolver cache on client devices is not really involved. ARP cache poisoning is completely different because really it's talking about sending out a fraudulent ARP cache update to victim devices on the network in order to redirect traffic to the attacker's machine via its MAC address. So nothing to do with DNS name resolution. And ransomware, of course, is a type of malware that normally encrypts user data files and demands a ransom payment in order to receive a decryption key, potentially receive a decryption key. So there you have it. The answer here is DNS cache poisoning.